first and foremost, thank you everyone for coming to this PEMAC sponsored event for the judging seminar. Thank you to Buster Circle Longsword for hosting us at this location. Thank you to everyone for coming and canceling or changing your respective practices to be here. Judging and directing is an important part of what we do. You guys will see it in next week for Rev Rome. We can't put on an event like that without the support of everyone who listens. Or 2 weeks from now, sorry.
Yeah, I freaked out for a second.
Practice like if it's next week. So you guys being here means a lot to our community. It means a lot to our future fencers. You will gain a lot of this that will help your fencing, and also judging, directing is just a cool tool to have in your tool belt anyways. Today's kind of be very much directed towards giving you as much experience judging and directing as much as possible. So we're going to keep the conversations very, very short, very brief, and just give you as many reps as possible. As always, you are amongst your friends and amongst your peers. Ask questions, be kind to each other, be respectful of the director, the judge, the fighters themselves. And again, we're all here to help each other grow. So if you have any questions, if you feel anything that you feel either uncomfortable or you're unsure of, voice your concerns because someone else may have them as well. So to start, we're going to start just a quick overview of general talking about theory, about what it means to be a good judge or director. Overall, it comes down to a couple of very key things. Again, everyone's experience is different, but you have in this room a lot of people who have directed not just on the East Coast, but also on the West Coast at high intensity, high level tournaments, at very beginner stuff. So everything comes down to just a very few key insight things that allow you to have the tool sets to apply it to any rule set that you come to or any environment that you are a part of. Steve, would you like to start?
Yes, okay. So these little printouts, I'll post them on the Discord and on the Facebook group afterwards. So just a little summary of everything we're talking about. So first of all, the role of a ref. What is a ref? What is the job of a ref during a tournament? So during a bout. So first of all, to maintain control of the court, basically, you want to make sure that the fencers respect your role as the ref, and you're able to you have control of your court, right? So that is in terms of safety, right? So if you if you notice any of your fencers getting like a little heated, or something's not right, you have to be able to take care of that. And also, if maybe the fencers don't like your calls or something, or they're getting indignant or whatever, you have to be able to identify and control that situation. Just like make sure that you're still in charge of your court. Right? And it does happen sometimes that a ref doesn't have control of the court, and it's not pretty. It doesn't end up in a good situation. Okay. Correctly apply the rules is second role of the ref that I have. So I shouldn't have to say this, but unfortunately I do. Read the rules. Whenever you go to a tournament, read the rules of the tournament. So I hear people say sometimes like, oh, I'm just going to do my fencing, whatever, and I don't care what's in the rules. Okay. Well, first of all, you're going to do your fencing anyway because you're you. So you can't do anything but your fencing. Second of all, there's more to the rules than just how many points a hit is worth, right? So there's gear requirements, there's safety rules, there's penalties, there's all kinds of stuff. So read the rules, especially if you're going to judge, but also if you're going to fence in. Right? And the third role, which is probably what most people are expecting to practice the most, and what we're going to practice the most because it's the hardest, seeing hits. Okay? And we'll talk more about that later. Okay. Characteristics of a good ref. So a good ref speaks loudly and clearly, right? So you want your fencers to always hear what you're saying, know what's going on. You don't want situations where they keep going because they can't hear the halt or whatever, or they're not sure what you just called out for points or whatever. They need to know what's going on. a good ref doesn't make the show about them, okay? So remember that as a ref or a judge, you're here for the benefit of the fencers, right? So by that I mean don't act excessively goofy and don't be super strict, okay? So I've seen some refs out there who, you know, they're kind of itching to card people, right? They like giving penalties a little bit too much, and I don't think that that's the most healthy thing, right? So you should be willing to give a penalty if it's needed, right? If someone does a penalty, someone does something against the rules, you shouldn't hesitate to give them a card. But you shouldn't be like, oh yeah, I'm going to see how many cards I'm going to give out today, you know. Brevity, okay? So a good ref practice is brevity. No one likes to be standing on their starting line waiting like 2, 3, 4 minutes for a call only to hear that it was, you know, no quality or a messy exchange, do it again, right? So there's usually no reason to, you know, take too long taking a call, right? If you didn't see something, then talking about it for 2 minutes isn't gonna help, right? So never do the judge huddle, except for, unless you're discussing a penalty, right? If you're discussing, oh, was that excessive force, you know, whatever, then you can come in with your judge and like discuss it. But if it's for a call, you should never have to do the judge huddle. What did you see? I saw this is the call, okay? Apply the rules as written to the best of their ability, even if you disagree, right? So you're at King's Cup, there's no quality requirements, you think there should be quality requirements, it doesn't matter, right? Still call this a point. That's the rule, that's what you do. The good ref is able to explain the reasoning behind every call that they make, okay? So if you see a fencer looks confused or, you know, something's going on, you should be able to explain, I gave the call because of this, and that, right? And is able to de-escalate a heated situation. Right? So I think John's going to talk more about this, but like, you know, if you notice your fencer like doesn't like calls or is, you know, looks like they may be at risk of acting aggressively, or if, you know, that's already happened and something's going down, you should be able to de-escalate the situation.
Super quick. So going back to that previous point of the director should be able to explain the calls, that's the first step in de-escalating. So if you can say, yes, you hit, but it was guard and then a little on the arm, you can articulate that, that's the first step in keeping them from going, what the hell, that was about.
All right. So I'm going to hand off to John now.
Cool. Seeing hits by thinking technically. Everything that we do is a art. It is very technical. All the sources will tell you one thing or another of use your skill over your strength to get to the point. As judges, it is the same thing. We have to be able to recognize and think about what is actually happening in front of us faster than they are doing so, because as we all know, things can happen like that, and your reaction time and your ability to understand what information that your eyes are seeing is equally as important as being on the fencing side and trying to do the exact same thing. So one of the cool things that we have kind of like brought into our fencing culture here in PEMAC has been to have the, does it come from model fencing, the attack, counter-attack, riposte like style system, or just fencing in general?
It's, yeah, fencing in general.
So it follows a straight path of priority. One person attacks, counter-attack, riposte, renewal, rinse and repeat kind of thing. Thinking in those senses, you can immediately dictate the basis of what is happening. One sword went this way, one sword went that way. Great. Attack, counter-attack. You can now immediately see what's happening. Once you have a fundamental grasp of those kinds of concepts, now you can take it to that next level and say, okay, this attack went to the head. In that tempo, this counterattack went in, as you need to explain the rules at that point when you get to that section. But if you truncate it to, you're seeing a very small snippet of things, you immediately see what you're doing, and then you can apply the other fencing logic that you already know. Great, cool. Because now I can take anyone who's a judge and just tell them, Where did the sword go? Did the sword move and do the thing? Great. And now we all have a unified language that we can go and apply to the situation. You can now then rely on your line judge or the director to say, okay, cool, I saw this in the head, blah, 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 and then do the whole explanation from there. Which is why it also helps make things short and brief. It's a very quick bang, bang, attack, counter, attack, no, counter attack, yes, 1 point this way. Versus, you hit the head, but it was kind of tippy, so we're going to avoid this hit that landed. I've already finished this next exchange by the time I finish this explanation. So that's why we kind of use this more unified, standardized system and way of thinking. Rely on line judge. I am not perfect, you are not perfect, no one is perfect, no one is going to be omniscient, no matter how long they've been fencing. Literally just because we're standing here, I'm going to use Matt as an example. Matt will see things that happen on that side that I will not. Someone's body's going to get in the way, the fences are going to start turning. I need to be able to rely on Matt's ability to say, yeah, no, I definitely saw this hit. Great, I didn't see it, we're going to go with it. Call it a day, you don't need to judge huddle, keep it short, keep it quick. What did you call? I'm going to trust you. Again, because we have a unified language, I don't need to know where it hit, just like, it hit. Cool, great, we'll figure out the points later on and we'll see what happens. As this is more for the director, or like the head judge, if you are allowed, some rule sets will allow you to overrule things. Again, for the sake of time and for the sake of respecting your line judge and your fencers, try not to overrule things as much as possible. Just go with the call, move along. There are many more chances to fence, many more exchanges to be had. We don't need to get every single exchange correctly. My personal rule for me as a director, I want to be at least 85% correct on all my judge calls in terms of overall. Again, not perfect, not going to get to 100%. No one, we should strive for that. Understand that's not going to be a realistic thing. 85% to me is a really good thing. Out of 10 exchanges, over 8 of them were called correctly. I'm good. I'm good because I have my line judge who's going to see the other two. We're good, right? Practice tips. We'll go more in depth. I will briefly talk about these now, but we'll go more in depth when we're doing the accuracy and the other practical points. Again, as we're walking around, ask questions, we can go a little bit more in focus on these things. Look in between the fighters. What you will find a lot of line judging start to do is you're seeing a lot of action, you're seeing a lot of movement, and then I start going this way. But now something happens over here, and you can't see it. If you look in between both fighters, you keep your peripheral vision of the swords happening at the same time, and you can see not just one action happen, but also the second. So again, going back to that unified language, I can now tell which sword or which who is moving forward. They are the ones who are getting the priority for the attack, and if that is the rule set. So staying in the center and then moving, if they move this way, you move, you keep the center. That is your responsibility as that director to make sure that you are seeing everything that you can in the fight as it happens. One thing that I always love to do, if your fighters start turning, you turn about halfway. If they turn even more, that's on them. You turn back the other way, because guess what? They're going to just reset down into the other side. If you just start circling because they start circling, you will almost always miss something, and you also lose the center in between because they're going to be rotating a lot faster than you want. Look at your body movements of the fencers. Again, taking that peripheral vision into account, you can start seeing this a lot more. Steve did a wonderful video kind of showing when two bodies clash in, there's more of a higher chance of doubles happening because of this both double forward motion. It's somewhere on the Bucks channel. I would strongly suggest looking at it because this like tip comes from that video where you can start seeing, especially for priority, when someone has an advantage, someone's backing away, you can start to see and recognize when someone stops, the other person will almost always attack in that tempo. Or things are start happening, you can start seeing the fight tactically from just their body positions, not worrying about these swords doing hits and lights and all this other crazy stuff that is very distracting. Use your hands to replay the scenario as I'm doing currently because this helps my brain be like, okay, this came in first, this came in second, attack yes, counter attack no. Right? And we can do all the stuff before that you will see. Some people like, you can do all these things, attack and counter attack. Using your hands is a part of the community, as much as the verbal, as much as the auditory, as much as the visual, using all 5 senses. I don't know where taste comes in, you can come back that later.
I tasted that good.
Yeah, you know? Taste the sweat coming down, you know? But using your hands does help at least, again, again, the last part, use auditory cues. Very much, again, things happen very quickly. It kind of sucks where things can be visual, like you can't, have super slow-mo replay in your mind. But if you hear plastic, you know it hit the hand. If you hit metal and then it hit over the guard to hit the plastic, again, depending on the rule set, that might count as a hit. Also, the rule says I cannot determine that was quality enough to give you the point, and that is again 85%. Make it cleaner. That's all we can do as fencers. Make it cleaner, make it better. But again, you'll see a lot of it more. We'll go more into details to what to see as examples come up for the accuracy and the actual drills for that. And the last big portion, so semi-good on time. Safety and excessive force, right? Safety is everyone's responsibility, flat out, right? If you see something, say something. I know it's always, the very cliche model that we hear everywhere else. Specifically for gear failure, that is like the most common example. If you see someone's elbow guard fly off mid-match, anyone can call a safety call, right? And if any one judge, director gives you shit for it, tell the event organizer because that's not acceptable behavior in general, right? Again, safety is everyone's responsibility. But this also includes the things that are either nonverbal or just not things that we really think about. Misconduct outside of the ring, repeated excessive force conduct, exposed tips for certain swords and certain rule sets that did something that, again, if you know that if you read the rules and they're like, hey, you must have leather on your tips, and someone's just walking around with a nice dangling free tip, that could be a potential safety for someone else. That could be your friend on the other side of that tip, on the other side of that sword. It could be you. Talk to someone, just hey, Steve, you're the event organizer. That person doesn't have a leather tip for the rules. That's it. Just
And again, going back to what Steve said, it doesn't matter if you agree with it or not. That's the rules for the event. Full stop.
Going into the first one, misconduct outside of the ring, this could be someone who's just repeatedly heated from either having missed calls, anything else of that nature. Either if you know the person, you can talk to them. But just be aware, hey, this person's on edge. It's not anyone's responsibility, but it is the event organizer's responsibility because you are all under our care to a certain extent. I would love to know if someone is not having a good time, right? Because if that is the case, we want them to come back. We want them to keep fighting us. We want them to have a good time to a certain extent. There's things that we can't control, but at least, having awareness of what's going on. Maybe I can go to hey, what's going on? Yeah, it sucks. Judges miss calls all the time. We're gonna work on that. Hope you're doing okay. And walk away. And then that in itself can change so much for this community. Having those moments for me personally as a fencer has been really enjoy going and traveling out to a lot of other places because I know that those are people who care about me as a customer, as a fencer, as someone as part of the community. So I want that for us as well, as much as possible. Gear check. If you are a director or a line judge, you are responsible for controlling the ring. You are responsible for gear check. Take it seriously. Again, it can be your friend who on the other side of that sword. It can be your friend who gets hurt, and you have the power to at least stay on top of things. Please try to do so. It helps bolster the professionalism in our community. It also just helps keep everyone safe because again, safety is everyone's responsibility, but more importantly, as for the judges and the line and line judges. For masks, no large dent. Large dent is where you can physically when you try to rub over it, your fingers curl in kind of thing with the dent. That's kind of borderline structure failure. There's YouTube videos, you can see it, someone gets stabbed straight through the mesh. It's not good. Thankfully, they did not get hurt. Little dents are okay. Yeah, I mean,
Everybody has little dents.
Everyone has little dents. Exactly. Gloves. Make sure you recognize them and that they're not compromised. So for me, everyone loves, yes.
Masks also check the lining.
The rim, yeah, the lining, exactly.
Especially at the forehead.
Especially at the forehead. Yep.
Forehead and the bottom.
So
What should we be looking for?
This one's not ripped, but
Ripped
this one's good. So yeah, so this part here, everybody can see.
There's a forehead mesh cover.
This spot, these spots, and this spot are all prone to tear.
Yeah.
So you can see up here, down here. If those are torn, if any of that's torn, then if that person gets a thrust or like a hit on the front of the face, they'll get waffled.
And I'll happily share a picture of my big old waffle between the eyes because that was torn.
I would also say you saw that black rubber band. That is like a structural frame around the mask. Also check for that. If that gets dented, it will take a big dent, and then that leads to a whole structural mask failure. Yes, Steve.
Also, that that nylon strip has a tendency to laminate. They use some sort of adhesive, some rubber.
Contact
adhesive.
cement.
Yeah. If that's compromised and that thing shifts, that could potentially cause an issue.
Yeah.
Just one more thing with masks. This is obvious, but I'll just say it anyway. If any of the links are broken, if any of the mesh is physically broken, absolutely do not want
No
to
go.
And if there's a ridge in the mesh down the center of the mask, that ridge cannot be dented at all because some masks require or rely on that as a structural element for stiffening the mesh.
Masks and gloves are kind of like the big staples. The masks, obviously, our heads are really important, so really take extra care. I literally run my finger through every part of the mask, just to make sure that everything is well. Again, as Steve said, every mask is going to have little dents. Just again, would you wear this mask? Would you feel comfortable taking a full thrust from any one of us with this mask on? If the answer is no, it does not be allowed. And again,
I would say take it a step beyond that because some people just like, oh yeah, I'd wear it, it'd be fine. No, would you put your kid in that mask? Would you put your mother in that mask and hit her in the face as hard as you can? Right? Like, it's not just your safety, it's somebody else's safety. And yeah, that standard needs to be as high as you can make it.
yeah. And if you have any questions, and it'll go into like the next one as well, just bring it to the event organizer. If they're giving you shit for like, oh, this mask is fine, it was just accepted at the last tournament, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna escalate up the chain. Here you go. Hey, this is a mask. It's questions. Final step for approval. They say yes. All right, cool. If they say no, hey, buddy, the event organizer said no. What do you want to do about it?
There's not as many homemade gloves as there used to be, but they're still out there.
Yeah. I might modify my pro goggles and they become homemade at that point. So it's get approval of your stuff. For me personally, one glove as an example is the Best Heavies. After time, they will start to crack in the plastic lining itself. If you start seeing those cracks, just say no. Ask them to get newer gloves or something. Mostly because like even with the flat hit, that cracks, all that force is going straight into the hands, and those Best Heavies really don't have that much protection underneath the Kydex or the plastic lining itself. There's no rubber, there's nothing else to protect it or distribute that force.
Any of the plastic, elbows and knees. I had a cracked elbow, Steve nailed me perfect, and it just split the elbow, right? From a tiny crack, it doesn't take much to expand it.
Yeah. Gorget, everyone has a gorget, everyone knows gorgets. Make sure that it's not a fully soft, like I think the first iteration of the Red Dragons were just all soft things. Again, that does not stop the blade from going in and attacking the soft bits. There is no real preference whether it's on the outside or on the inside. So as long as they have one, we're good to go. Cup and a chest protector. Usually it's not checked to protect the fencer's privacy. So it's just one of those, do you have a cup, do you have a chest protector? If they're like, no, I don't need it. Some rules require a cup. So if they say no, immediately tell the event organizer, like, hey, this person says that they don't have a cup. You tell me, right? Again, you are just there to facilitate and to make sure things run smoothly. You do not need to be good cop, bad cop. Just apply the rules as you know them and move along because you have other people to gear check and you have other things to run. And now the meat of it, excessive force. This should be outlined in every rule set. As a judge, make sure you know what constitutes excessive force for your rule set. I'll use Pittsburgh as an example. They're very lenient on terms of excessive force. They will allow to a certain point, like deep into the strong of the blade as count. They will exclude strong, but they'll let you go like further down into the sword than we will. Case cup, complete opposite side of the spectrum. You do not want to have full swing, specifically also in Atlanta as well. even full body rotation cuts can be considered excessive force to a certain extent, right? So know your rule set, know your community that you're going to apply as you need to. Again, you may not agree with everything. It doesn't matter. You're there to represent yourself, us, make sure everyone else is having a good time. Just do the job, right? Depending on the event, reiterate what excessive force means, because again, unfortunately, not everyone reads the rule sets. It's something that I started to do a lot, especially when I've been fortunate to walk to the West Coast. People were just like, oh, we're gonna do this thing. It's like, hey, this is what the rules are. This is what I consider excessive force if I have that power as a director or as a judge. Sometimes if I'm being a line judge, I will confer with the director, like, hey, what do you consider excessive force? Because as a judge, I don't want to start like throwing out cards for something that we're not in sync on, right? So it's even little things like that go a long way. I love to reiterate what excessive force means to me as a thing, and I'll explain that momentarily. But even during, every time I have a new fencer come into my ring, I take that moment and talk to them, because I would rather use that time to make sure we're on the same page than to waste it doing all the other, because I already saved all this time making great calls and making people brief. I can afford to be like, hey, welcome to my ring. Hi, I'm your director, I'm so-and-so. I just want to take a moment to explain what excessive force means for me in this ring. Done more often than not, or it's like, oh, cool, thank you, and then everything proceeds smoothly. Or when I tell them, hey, you're about to cross the line, they're like, I know exactly what happened, my bad. Great. Saves so much problems, saves people getting heated, all that other good stuff. Moving along. Cool. In general, don't be mean as a fencer. That is really the general statement. You're not trying to hurt your friends or your fellow fencers. For me, in general, again, depending on the rule set, depending on where you go, do not strike with the mid to strong, so like that lower half of the blade. Depending on the sword, if you know, if you have experience, whatever else, I like to just default straight half up. Everything from here up, you're good. Even this area down here, because at this point you're getting super close and it doesn't matter, you're swinging with force anyways, even if you're trying to be gentle. It hurts. Acceptable. Pain tolerance. Do not throw your body into a cut, so you're not doing this super big, like over such a thing. You can see this normally if your structure collapses. I can throw a very powerful cut like this, and you can see everything is there. If I'm seeing this, you can see like your entire body is going into something. Again, there's a human on the other side of that sword. Please do not hurt them.
Faster and harder are two different things.
Exactly.
You can throw a fast cut, it does not have to be hard.
If someone's rocking up onto their toes to throw an overhand, they're putting their whole weight into that.
Also, another thing is also people retreating. People will retreat and then snap down. This is the exact, like literally you can see your entire shoulders and everything throwing your body weight down. That can also, again, I've seen people get concussed by just doing that motion. It's little things that you will pick up over time as things get explained. But the last thing, same thing with thrusts. Do not, you will see this a lot where people disengage, go into breve and then shoot straight forward. Do not throw your entire body weight into a thrust. Right? Again, looking for that collapse structure. You can throw a thrust with control, extend arms, great, beautiful. But if you start seeing, you kind of stack them into the next zip code, again, I don't care that it's a Siggy. I don't care that it won't hurt. Just that body mechanic of itself can lead to someone getting injured. Do not do that. Do not make the other person feel unsafe. Because then they want to fight, then they want to come back, and now we lose potential money for an event.
It's not jabbing action.
Yeah.
It's this jabbing action. That's what's going to hurt, right? If I place my sword here, even if I bend it super hard, John's not even going to feel it.
No. There's also, with that jabbing motion, certain swords, because of how they're tempered, will not actually bend if you hit at a certain angle. Usually it's like about either 90, like flat perpendicular, flat, or vertical or horizontal, where you stab into something, even though it's like, I can't do it with that Siggy for like with my first Siggy. I can stab something and it will not bend because now you're transferring all that force linearly directly into a target and it won't bend because there's no flexion other directions, right? Again, with that jabbing motion, that's exactly what you're doing, especially if you throw your entire body weight into it. Yeah, I've seen Arius's almost dent his master just by doing so. It's just bad structure, it's just bad fencing. Look out for it, warn it ahead of time. Do not be a demi.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the judge makes the right call or the wrong call if somebody goes to the ER. Like, who cares if the judge got the call right? I'm getting stitches in the ER. Or your friend, or somebody you don't know. You send somebody to the hospital, that eats at you, right?
Yeah.
That's safety above all.
So my last two things, and then we're gonna move right along. This is what we as defenders can do to prevent and save ourselves even more from dealing with people who may be not on the same caliber or venting more rough than we feel that we are safe at if we're ever in that situation. First and foremost, do not close distance without engaging the sword of some kind, right? If you just want to walk in and someone's cutting at you and you just want to hit the arm because you want that nice clean, you want to be Superman and get the hell out of there, you will get hurt. Walking into a sword that's moving, you're walking not back over here, you're walking into this danger territory right here. I'm not going to be the person to be like, well, it's your fault that you got hurt. So please just be smarter about how you fence and protect yourself in that regard. Yeah, that's actually it. Those are both things. Engage the sword first and don't walk into moving swords without carrying or covering yourself in some kind of way. As much as, again, safety is everyone's responsibility. That means you also have to take care of yourself as well. Don't just go for a point at the risk of your safety.
I guess just one more thing regarding safety as a ref is just pay attention to the disposition of both fencers. Like if you see, like I said before with de-escalating, right? If you see someone's like, looks like they're really pissed off about not getting points or whatever, or like they're mad for whatever, for someone, if they're mad for any reason, right? Then, you know, there's a chance that, you know, excessive force is about to happen. And not just angry, but also if they're really tired, right? So the thing with swinging a sword is it's really easy to get it going, right? You don't have to be strong to get a sword going, but it takes more strength to stop, right? So if you're really tired, if you don't have any arm strength left, then there's the potential that you're just going to be throwing the sword out there and, you know, just blasting your opponent and not being able to control it anyway. So just pay attention to that as well. And if you see someone's really tired and they do a swing, like maybe they miss a swing, they're out of distance, and it just goes down and like hits the ground, you can be like, all right, take a break for a second. I'm going to give you this card because that was excessive force, and then work from there.
But that right there, take a break for a second. Whether it's tired, whether it's angry, whether it's frustration, take a break for a second, relax your arms, like, hey, take a deep breath, calm down, right? This intensity is max I want to see. This intensity is too hot. Bring it down. And if you have two fighters that are getting frustrated and angry, that intensity will ramp up and ramp up and ramp up. They will feed off of each other. So first thing, explain your calls. If that's not working, take a break. Whether you need a card to give him, like, okay, card to somebody. To bring it down, before that, depending, just have them take a break. A couple of deep breaths, remind them we're here to have fun, not to kill anyone.
Okay, all right. Just the last thing. I know we're running a little bit late. We do want to do a practice match so everybody can see. But the last thing that I have is when you use a card, actually show the person the card, right? Okay, so at least with our tournament, we're going to provide cards for everybody. Usually cards are provided. Get your own cards if you want to, because then you have your own cards in school. But, you know, don't just say like, oh, penalty yellow card. Let's keep going. Actually pull out the card, yellow card. You know, it's different. It feels different when you see the card.
It also changes everyone. Psychologically, it changes your focus. I'm not thinking about hitting Jeff now. I'm looking at Steve standing in front of me with a yellow card. This is much more real than, oh yeah, I just got carded. Fine, I'm just gonna get Jeff.
And you don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be like,
Right.
you don't have to like, it's not a punishment, right? You're not punishing the person by like, oh, I hate you, Pat. You got this card. You did something like that. It's it's just it's showing. It's not a big.
You did this. You got a card. We're moving on.
It's also not common in the fencing culture to give cards as often unless it gets like to a certain extreme point. So even little things like this is something that the community will take time to adopt. So we're in that transitionary period before it becomes standard practice or more common practice amongst the other PEMA areas.
That's why it's important to have that like pre-fight conversation so they can get that additional context when that card appears. Because when you're having a fight brain, it's easy to be more aggressive about everything you're hearing in totality. So it's like you can attach that memory to, oh, this is what that card means. I got this because my director's explicitly told me what happened. If I showed these sort of activities and these sort of behaviors in fight. So
Also, you can show table, hey, there's a card happening. So if you have a table that's doing the sport things, they can see like, oh, cool, I gotta do something. So it's more visual reinforcement.
It's not a personal thing.
Yeah.
I just want to mention one thing very briefly about judging. A couple things. Somebody told me a long time ago to watch the action with soft eyes. You're not watching any one fighter, you're just taking the whole picture in. And the other thing is don't be as impartial as you can be. Even if you're watching a fight that should go one way, don't let that influence your opinion when it comes to making the calls.
You have no friends when you're judging or directing. You're just fencers and you're doing your job.
you're an avatar of the rule set, nothing more.
There is only the codex.
Yeah, we like talking too much, so we won't stop now. Okay, so Garrett and Jeff, we're just gonna do a quick practice match. So let me put this like over here.
No spectators.
Oh.
Everyone close your eyes.
I wonder if this will work.